Ναι, καλησπέρα. Να καθίσουμε σιγά-σιγά προκειμένου να ξεκινήσουμε. Σας ευχαριστώ πολύ. Αξιότιμη κύριε Πρίτανη, αξιότιμη κυρία Αντιπριτάνης, κύριε Κοσμήτορες, αξιότιμα μέλη του Συμβουλίου Διοίκησης του Ιδρύματος, αξιότιμοι προσκεκλημένοι, κυρίες και κύριοι, σας καλωσορίζουμε στη σημερινή μας διάλεξη με τίτλο Universal AI and the Future of Universities. Είναι μεγάλη μας τιμή να φιλοξενούμε σήμερα έναν από τους κορυφαίους επιστήμονες στον χώρο της επιχειρησιακής έρευνας και τεχνητής νοημοσύνης, τον καθηγητή Δ. Δημήτριο Μπερτσιμά. Ξεκινώντας την εκδήλωσή μας, θα ήθελα να παρακαλέσω τον πρίτανη του Εθνικού Μετσοβίου Πολυτεχνείου, κύριο Ιωάννη Χατζηγεωργίου, να προσέλθει στο βήμα για ένα σύντομο χειροτισμό. Ευχαριστώ.
Κύριε πρώην Πρόεδρε της Κυβέρνησης, αγαπητοί κύριε Μπερτσιμά, κύριοι Πριτάνης, εκπρόσωποι ιδρυμάτων, φίλες και φίλοι, αγαπητές και αγαπητοί παρευρισκόμενοι. Σήμερα έχουμε τη χαρά και τη μεγάλη τιμή να υποδεχόμαστε στο Εθνικό Μετσόβιο Πολυτεχνείο έναν από τους πλέον διακεκριμένους αποφύτους του. Έναν Έλληνα επιστήμονα, απόφυτο του μεγάλου μας σχολείου, που έχει αφήσει το ανεξίτηλο αποτύπωμά του τόσο στην παγκόσμια επιστημονική κοινότητα όσο και στην κοινωνία. Ο Δημήτρης Μπερτσιμάς αποφύτησε από το Σχολείο Ηλεκτρολόγων Μηχανικών και Μηχανικών Υπολογιστών του Εθνικού Μετσόβιου Πολυτεχνείου το 1985. Μετά το πτυχίο του διέγραψε μια εντυπωσιακή πορεία στο MIT και έκτοτε έχει συμβάλει καταλυτικά στη διαμόρφωση του πεδίου της επιχειρησιακής έρευνας, της επιστήμης δεδομένων και της εφαρμοσμένης τεχνητής νοημοσύνης. Έγινε επίκουρος καθηγητής στο MIT το 1988 σε ηλικία 26 ετών και καθηγητής πρώτης βαθμίδας σύμφωνα με την ελληνική ορολογία σε ηλικία 32 ετών, από τους νεότερους στην ιστορία του MIT. Σήμερα είναι Boeing Professor of Operational Research και Associate Dean στο Sloan School of Management. Από το 2024 κατέχει τη θέση του Vice Provost for Open Learning. Εξελέγει το 2005 μέλος της Εθνικής Ακαδημίας Μηχανικής των Ηνωμένων Πολιτειών της Αμερικής για τις συνεισφορές του στη θεωρία της βελτιστοποίησης και των στοχαστικών συστημάτων και για τις καινοτόμες εφαρμογές του στα οικονομικά και τις μεταφορές. Πριν λίγους μήνες, το MIT του απένιμε το ανώτατο βραβείο που αποδίδεται σε μέλος της ακαδημαϊκής του κοινότητας, αναγνωρίζοντας τη συνεισφορά του Δημήτρη Μπερτσιμά για ακόμη μία φορά με τον πλέον τιμητικό τρόπο. Το James R. Killian Jr. Award, Faculty Achievement Award, για το 2025-2026, το οποίο απονέμεται από το MIT σε καθηγητή για τη βαθιά γνώση, συνεχή καινοτομία και πραγματική προσφορά στην κοινωνία. Και πραγματικά, στα 37 χρόνια καριέρας του στο MIT, ο Δημήτρης Μπερτσιμάς έχει συνδυάσει την πρωτοποριακή έρευνα με την εφαρμογή της σε startups και καινοτόμες λύσεις που βελτιώνουν τη ζωή των ανθρώπων. Με ιδιαίτερο πάθος για την εκπαίδευση τον Απρίλιο του 2025 γιόρτασε την επίβλεψη 100 υποψηφίων διδακτόρων που έλαβαν το διδακτορικό τους τίτλο πιστεύοντας ακράδαντα ότι αλλαγή στη χώρα μπορεί να έρθει μέσα από τους νέους ανθρώπους αν τους εμπνεύσουμε και τους δώσουμε ευκαιρίες. Ορισμένοι από αυτούς είναι σήμερα μέλη της Διεθνούς Ακαδημαϊκής Κοινότητας, όπως η Μίτσελ Γκόιμανς, η Ιωάννης Πασχαλίδης και άλλοι, ή έχουν διαπρέψει στον επιχειρηματικό τομέα, όπως η Jack Dunn και Daisy Zhuo, συνειδητές της Interpretable AI και άλλοι. Πέραν των άλλων επιστημονικών του επιτευγμάτων, έχει διαδραματίσει ενεργό ρόλο στη διαμόρφωση καινοτόμων προγραμμάτων σπουδών, όπως το Masters in Business Analytics του MIT Sloan School of Management, ενώ έχει ιδρύσει και σειρά επιχειρηματικών πρωτοβουλειών που βασίζονται στην αξιοποίηση της τεχνητής νοημοσύνης για προβλήματα στον χώρο της υγείας, των μεταφορών και της εκπαίδευσης. Το πρόσφατο έργο του, το Universal AI, φιλοδοξεί να καταστήσει τη τεχνητή νοημοσύνη διαφανή, ερμηνεύσιμη και άμεσα εφαρμόσιμη στην καθημερινή λήψη αποφάσεων. Όπως συχνά επισημαίνει ο ίδιος, η επιστήμη χωρίς εφαρμογή είναι ημιτελής. Η αποστολή μας είναι να μετατρέψουμε τη γνώση σε αντίκτυπο και να εστιάζουμε στην επίλυση προβλημάτων που φέρουν ουσιαστική αλλαγή, όχι σε 50 χρόνια, αλλά στο παρόν. Η φράση αυτή συμπυκνώνει μια ολόκληρη αντίληψη για το ρόλο του επιστήμονα, του ερευνητή και του ακαδημαϊκού. Μια αντίληψη που ταυτίζεται απόλυτα με την αποστολή του Εθνικού Μετσόβιου Πολυτεχνείου να παράγει επιστημονική γνώση υψηλής ποιότητας και να τη μετατρέπει σε χειροπιαστό, θετικό αντίκτυπο για την κοινωνία, την οικονομία και το περιβάλλον. Κύριε Μπερτσιμά, αγαπητέ Δημήτρη, σας ευχαριστούμε που είστε σήμερα ξανά στο Πολυτεχνείο μας και μας υπενθυμίζετε τη διαδρομή που μπορεί να χαράξει ένας επιστήμονας όταν συνδυάζει τη γνώση με την ουσία, την καινοτομία με την ευθύνη. Ξέρω ότι εκτιμήσατε την καθοδήγηση των δασκάλων σας εδώ στο Πολυτεχνείο στην αρχή της πορείας σας. Μοιραζόμαστε μαζί σας την πεποίθηση ότι οι νέοι άνθρωποι είναι το μέλλον. Εάν τους εκπαιδεύσεις σωστά, τους εμπνεύσεις κατάλληλα και τους δώσεις ευκαιρίες, θα βρουν τον δρόμο τους. Σας υποδεχόμαστε με τη νέα πλέον σας ιδιότητα, αυτή του επίτιμου διδάκτορα της Σχολής Ηλεκτρολόγων Μηχανικών και Μηχανικών Υπολογιστών. Διότι, κύριε Μπερτσιμά, βρίσκομαι στην ιδιαίτερα ευχάριστη θέση να ανακοινώσω ότι η σύγκλιτος του Εθνικού Μετσόβιου Πολυτεχνείου, σε έκτακτη συνεδρίασή της εχθές, 8/7/2025, αποφάσισε να σας απονείμει τον μέγιστο αυτόν τίτλο μετά από ομόφωνη εισήγηση της σχολής, από την οποία αποφοιτήσατε για την προσφορά σας στην επιστήμη και την κοινωνία. Επίσης, σας ευχαριστούμε για την πρόταση την οποία απευθύνατε προς το Εθνικό Μετσόβιο Πολυτεχνείο για την πρόσβαση του Ιδρύματός μας στις υπηρεσίες Open Learning του MIT και πιο συγκεκριμένα στην πλατφόρμα Universal AI, η οποία αναπτύσσεται με την καθοδήγησή σας. Για τη συμμετοχή του Εθνικού Μετσόβιου Πολυτεχνείου στις υπηρεσίες ανοιχτής πρόσβασης του MIT, πέραν της προφανούς προσβασιμότητας των μελών και των φοιτητών της κοινότητάς μας, υπάρχει και η σαφής πρόβλεψη για τη δημιουργία εκπαιδευτικών μονάδων τεχνητής νοημοσύνης σε εξειδικευμένες θεματικές ενότητες και τομείς γνώσης ή επαγγέλματος, ή όπως σύστα αποκαλείται verticals, που αποτελούν ένα πολύτιμο εργαλείο για διεπιστημονική εκπαίδευση και προετοιμασία για τις σύγχρονες απαιτήσεις εργασίας. Είμαι λοιπόν ξανά στην πολύ ευχάριστη θέση να ανακοινώσω ότι οι συνεννοήσεις και επαφές για την υλοποίηση του πολύ σημαντικού αυτού εγχειρήματος έχουν επί της ουσίας ολοκληρωθεί και σύντομα θα υπογραφούν οι απαραίτητες συμφωνίες. Τούτο όμως δεν θα ήταν εφικτό χωρίς την πολύτιμη χρηματοδοτική στήριξη του Ιδρύματος Μποδοσάκη, του Ιδρύματος Ευγενίδη, της εταιρείας Titan και της εταιρείας Accenture, οι οποίοι θα αναλάβουν το 75% του συνολικού κόστους, ενώ το υπόλοιπο 25% θα καλυφθεί από το Εθνικό Μετσόβιο Πολυτεχνείο. Εκπρόσωποι αυτών είναι σήμερα κοντά μας και μπορώ να τους ευχαριστήσω και προσωπικά εκ μέρους του Ιδρύματος. Ιδιαιτέρως όμως θέλω να μνημονεύσω τη συμβολή του Ιδρύματος Μποδοσάκη και συγκεκριμένα να ευχαριστήσω τις αξιότιμες κυρίες Αθηνάδε Σύπρη και Τζένιφερ Κλάρκ για το συντονισμό της προσπάθειας ολοκλήρωσης της χορηγικής ομάδας. Από την πλευρά του Ιδρύματός μας, τη σύνταξη και περιγραφή του φυσικού αντικειμένου της συμμετοχής μας ανέλαβε ο καθηγητής της Σχολής Ηλεκτρολόγων Μηχανικών και Μηχανικών Υπολογιστών, κ. Γεώργιος Στάμου, τον οποίον ευχαριστώ από καρδιάς. Φρονώ ότι με τη συγκεκριμένη πρωτοβουλία και την υλοποίησή της, το Εθνικό Μετσόβιο Πολυτεχνείο εισέρχεται σε άλλο επίπεδο ακαδημαϊκής κλίμακας, έχοντας πρόσβαση στη δυνατότητα παγκόσμιας επιρροής σε εφαρμογές τεχνητής νοημοσύνης, προς όφελος φυσικά της επιστήμης, της ακαδημαϊκής μας κοινότητας και εν τέλει της ίδιας της χώρας και των πολιτών της. Αγαπητές και αγαπητοί συνάδελφοι, δεν θα σας κρατήσω περισσότερο σε αναμονή. Έχω πει ήδη αρκετά. Καλώ λοιπόν τον επίτιμο διδάκτορα του Εθνικού Μετσόβιου Πολυτεχνείου πλέον, τον Δημήτρη Μπερτσιμά, στο βήμα για την ομιλία του με τίτλο Universal AI and the Future of Universities.
Θα αρχίσω στα ελληνικά, αλλά την ομιλία θα είναι στα αγγλικά, γιατί υπάρχουν πολλοί φίλοι μου από την Αμερική, οι οποίοι δεν ξέρουν ελληνικά, στο κοινό. Αλλά πριν ξεκινήσω, καταρχήν ευχαριστώ πάρα πολύ το Πολυτεχνείο. Το Πολυτεχνείο είναι ιδιαίτερο για μένα. Σήμερα είναι περίπου 40 χρόνια που τελείωσα. Και αν και δεν είναι η πρώτη φορά που έχω πάρει επιτιμοποίηση, αλλά μετράει πολύ σημαντικό για μένα, για το Πολυτεχνείο δεν είναι οποιαδήποτε σχολή. Ευχαριστώ πολύ τους ανθρώπους που με επιλέξανε και τον κύριο Πρίτανη που μόλις τώρα το ανακοίνωσε. Καταρχήν, θα αλλάξω στα αγγλικά σε κάποια στιγμή, αλλά τα πρώτα θα είναι, γιατί έχουν σχέση με την παρουσία μου στη χώρα. Όπως ίσως είπε ο κύριος Πρίτανης, ότι μπήκα το 81 και τελείωσα το 85, και εκείνη την περίοδο, μια δύσκολη περίοδο για το Πολυτεχνείο, ο τότε κοσμήτορας ήταν ο κύριος Πρωτονοτάριος και ο τότε γραμματέας ήταν ο κύριος Πάσχος, ο οποίος, επειδή ήθελα να τελειώσω μια χρονιά νωρίτερα, μου έσβηνε τα μαθήματα. Αλλά ο κύριος Πρωτονοτάριος μου τα ξανάβαζε. Οπότε τελικώς τα κατάφερα να τελειώσω σε 4 χρόνια, αλλά δεν ήταν ευέλικτο. Οπότε να ευχαριστήσω τον κύριο Πρωτονοτάριο, ο οποίος δεν είναι μαζί μας βέβαια, αλλά πάντα το θυμάμαι με μεγάλη ευγνωμοσύνη. Η δεύτερη ιστορία από την περίοδο είναι ο κύριος Νανόπουλος, ο οποίος ήταν καθηγητής με πιθανότητες. Και εκτός από την το επιστημονικό γνώση που μου προσέφερε και το encouragement, έχει δεν το ξέρει ο ίδιος, αλλά έχει μια σημαντική επιρροή στη ζωή μου, ίσως την πιο σημαντική, να πούμε την αλήθεια. Τότε λοιπόν, συμμαθητής μου στο Πολυτεχνείο ήταν ο Ηλίας Περάκης, ο αδελφός της γυναίκας μου Γεωργίας, που φυσικά τότε δεν ήταν γυναίκα μου, δεν την ήξερα καν. Λοιπόν, τότε λοιπόν πήραμε ο Ηλίας και εγώ, καλοί μαθητές ξέρω εγώ, και με ενδιαφέρον για τις πιθανότητες, πήραμε ένα σεμινάριο, οι δυο μας δηλαδή, και ο κύριος Πηλιώτης, ο οποίος ήταν τότε βοηθός του κύριου Νανόπουλου. Δηλαδή κάναμε μάθημα με τον κύριο Νανόπουλο για να εμβαθύνουμε, ας πούμε, βρισκόμασταν στη ζαχαροπλαστεία κτλ. Δεν γνωριζόμασταν πολύ καλά με τον άνθρωπο, με τον Ηλία, γνωριζόμασταν επιστημονικά κυρίως. Οπότε μια φορά του λέω, να βρεθούμε, να γνωριστούμε κατά κάποιο τρόπο, και πάω στο σπίτι τους. Και πιο γνωρί βλέπω την κυρία Περάκη, η οποία από τότε δεν την ξανάχασα. Οπότε, για να πούμε την αλήθεια, οι πιθανότητες τα έφεραν έτσι στη ζωή, οπότε έχει μια σημαντική αλλαγή στη ζωή μου. Δηλαδή, ίσως, όπως πιστεύω, ότι ίσως την πιο σημαντική. Μετά λοιπόν από αυτή την ιστορία πήγα στην Αμερική. Από το 1985 μέχρι σήμερα είμαι πάντα στο MIT, και στην αρχή σαν φοιτητής, και εδώ πέρα να αναγνωρίσω τον καθηγητή μου, τον κύριο Αμεντέο Ντόνι, ο οποίος είναι σήμερα παρόν. Ένας από τους one of the most εξαίρετος από το distinguished, he's a true gentleman. Και αυτοί που με ξέρουν ότι δεν λέω υπερβολές. Ότι μπορεί να είμαι λαθασμένος, αλλά πάντα λέω αυτό που πιστεύω. Μερικές φορές του default. Αλλά και ο Ντέκος είναι από τότε, 40 χρόνια αργότερα, από τους πιο καλούς μου, ίσως ο πιο καλός μου φίλος στο Πολυτεχνείο. Στο MIT μιλάμε πάρα πολύ συχνά, ακόμα και τώρα. This was, now I'm switching to English, which would be the language of the presentation today. And I would like to motivate what I'm going to talk today. Of course, I selected a topic of broader interest because I understood the lecture is for a broader audience. Don't expect equations and mathematics. I hope it will be of some excitement to you. What I have found in my 40 years as a researcher, as an educator, and also as an entrepreneur, is I really believe in young people. I really do. As you heard, I have graduated more than 100 PhD students, and 103 to be exact, and 3 in the summer. I'm surrounded by young people. These are people, in fact, many of them come from this institution. I don't know if Vasilina is here. One of my students is there. Here it is. She is a graduate, a very distinguished graduate of the National Technical University, and one of my best students at MIT. And this is a long tradition. Out of 103, maybe I have, I think 113, about 10%, 12% are Greek students. So that's quite something, I would say. So, and what drives me is two things: educating and working with young people, empowering them and inspiring them. That's an important part of my life. But also trying to have impact, at least the way I perceive it. I'm not always as successful, or at least I aspire to. And what we're going to talk today is along these lines. And in particular, the area of my expertise is utilizing data, and which I think is an objective reality as opposed to our opinions. Okay? So now let me move to a professorial mode now. So the first part of the presentation is about research that has been informed by artificial intelligence, in which I have spent the last 10 years, maybe 15 years of my life, although I have always been involved in data. And the second part is how all this research endeavor has led us to something that I think is reasonably ambitious about educating the world on artificial intelligence. So let us first discuss some research. So I have three examples, one from healthcare, one from climate, and one from agriculture. So historically, decisions regarding these matters done by personal people, by physicians, for example, utilize some type of data that in this case could be a CT scan, electrocardiogram, an X-ray, and so forth, for diagnosis and prescription. This is sort of a human-centric perspective. On a climate, if you look, and this is, this school has a very distinguished aerodynamics faculty that has spent a lot of time in Navier-Stokes equations. The last 200 years, classical mechanics are utilized to predict fluid trajectories. And fluid, in this case, is predicting climate, which is also a part of fluid, utilizes the dynamic nonlinear equations of the Navier-Stokes equations for predicting, for example, hurricanes or natural disasters. That's, again, a human-centric perspective. Finally, in agriculture, typically for trying to understand the harvest prediction or recommending fertilizers, people use atmospheric data for that. All right? That's, again, a central, a human-centric perspective for which primarily one set of data is utilized. Okay? So instead, in healthcare, but let's now think about machines. Good machines, this is the promise of artificial intelligence, AI for short, is to utilize data of various kinds for achieving similar objectives that humans so far have accomplished. For example, in the case of healthcare, you can think about CT scans, MRIs, and the like as images, computer type of images. We have reports. Clearly, if you have an MRI, there is a radiology report that humans write, but it's language. That's the second mode, right? Third, could have genomic data, the sequence of our genome, something that has been accomplished 25 years ago, although not widely utilized yet. And then tabular data, electronic medical records, claims data, and so forth. This data is readily available today. So and I'll give you some examples. The promise is that we can utilize this data in multiple modes, multimodal data, to utilize them for diagnosis and predictions. And I will give you a few examples where in my work and my group at MIT have accomplished some of that part, some of this promise. That's the second part. That's the healthcare application. On climate, the primary emphasis so far, as I told you, has been the dynamics, the nonlinear equations. However, if you think about what data is available, there is available images. So, for example, we have images, atmospheric images. I don't know if you have, if you remember, if you have a hurricane, there are these little aeroplanes that come very, very close to these aeroplanes that take photographs. I always thought they were a bit crazy people, but the good news is that we now have the data historically. Another example is text, the geography of the place. If you look at Wikipedia and you look at New Orleans, you can find how the geography of the place is, atmospheric and geographic data, as well as historical patterns. These data are available. So the question is, can artificial intelligence utilize multimodal data to be able to accomplish predictions of the direction of hurricanes and the strength of hurricanes, a very significant problem in the world. Similar questions can be asked for earthquakes, for which not much progress has happened in history. We still cannot predict with high quality accuracy when an earthquake happens, a problem of importance to Greece. And finally, in agriculture, there is satellite imaging. We have, satellites take photographs of the ground. We have atmospheric data as well as historical crop patterns. We know, for example, my father comes from Lamia. We have olive oils there, together with the entirety of Greece, of course. But we have morphology of the data. We have a lot of data available. So the question is, can we utilize this data for harvest prediction to recommend fertilizers for optimal yields? I just came back, Georgia and I came back from, we have a house in the area, and every year my relatives complain that the yields is definitely not predictable and often quite low. So these are some motivation to demonstrate that there exists a lot of data in multiple formats, images, language, tabular data, that appropriately combined, given the, in my opinion, revolutionary advances in artificial intelligence, it gives at least the question whether you can utilize them effectively. Now, of course, multimodality is not new to humans. If you look at a baby, a newborn baby, after a few months, utilizing the totality of our senses, smell, sight, taste, hearing, and touch, you can observe one day old baby over a few months becoming, even a year or so, using multimodality, becoming a functioning human who is, of course, in relatively short time, advances its comprehension of the world. So multimodality is a part of human life. So it is reasonable to expect that, at least by analogy anyway, that humans utilizing sensor data, audio data, images, text, and video could increase and improve our ability to predict and make decisions. By the way, although it's a bigger crowd, I actually enjoy if you interrupt me with questions. Being an educator and learning from some of the best, Mr. Odoni, ask me questions. Whenever you ask me, I promise I will stop. And I think the lecture will go better if you interrupt me. I recognize in a bigger audience it's not so easy, but I will encourage. Maybe George Stamu, who knows me better, can ask me a question, although he might know the answers. So the first topic of my effort today is how we can transform research. I gave 3 examples: one in health, one in agriculture, and one in climate, relatively different areas. How we can transform research with AI. Because this is not, for example, today, if you go to our mechanical engineering department or civil, the place that studies climate, or the atmospheric department, they don't utilize as much AI on that. They use the classical approach of the Navier-Stokes equation and so forth. Not a bad approach, but I would say does not utilize the totality of knowledge that we have. Similarly, in health, the presence of AI is only beginning. It's not there yet. And in many other areas, I think you can have the... So what I have chosen few examples from my group's work over the years to demonstrate some concrete results. And of course, one objective is to say, we wrote a paper, it appeared in a journal, high quality journal, we have citations. That's one level of impact. That's not the way I judge it. I judge it by the degree to which some of the results can be used in real world applications, not in theory, not it could be used, but it is used. So, and I picked some examples where this is, at least I can say with some degree of confidence that this is indeed the case. The first example is one of the more significant issues with humans, the idea of having a hematoma in the brain. So you have it's quite common, especially as you increase in life, you might fall and you might hit your head and you might have a hematoma. So typically people who have that, they go to the hospital with some complaints. They have a headache, assuming they are capable of going. So the question is, can you detect whether there is what's called a subdural hematoma? In the graph, it's the red part on the top of the brain. And can you detect it? Can you make a prognosis? Can you treat it? And can you predict the evolution over 1 month, 2 months, and so forth? It's a serious topic. Here are some statistics. It is expected by the year currently, I think, is the second most common neurosurgical event. And by year 2030, especially as the population ages, they will be the *1 neurosurgical emergency outcome. So people come there. So the approach that we have developed together with a healthcare system, one of the largest in Connecticut, about 2,500 beds, 40,000 people, sizable place. We built a diagnostic model based on AI, in particular multimodal AI, that utilizes tabular data, images, and segmentations to predict whether somebody has a hematoma and its evolution. Which is particularly important because even if you do not treat a hematoma appropriately, the person will not make it. Or if you treat it but not effectively, it will come again and then it will be very deadly the second time around. This is not a minor matter. Life and death is at stake. So in terms of, this is currently, in fact, Vasilina is the lead student on the matter in this work. And we estimate that the benefit to the world would be of the order of in few $1 billion. Not hundreds of billions, but $billions. Most importantly, it would be lives. So what we have done is simply stated here. Forget about what area under the curve is. It's a measure of accuracy, all right? So think about the highest is 100. The closest to 100, the better it is. So if you only use tabular data, namely electronic medical records, you can get accuracies of the order of 74%. But if you use what's called CNNs, which is a deep learning architecture that is particularly for images on its own, it's about 92%. And if you use segmentations, which is a machine learning method on its own, you get similar performance. But if you put all of them together, which you should, because all this data is available, the accuracy approaches of the order of 94 and more recently 95. You might say, who cares, 2%? But it matters. Because if you miss one, likely the person will not make it. So we are talking, it matters to have high accuracy on this. And currently, what we have developed is in use in Hartford Hospital system that utilizes these technologies, which is a non-negligible, in my opinion anyway, not that the work is, but the fact that hospitals medical doctors that are not trained in this area have the confidence to use it is in my opinion, a win. It's not an easy thing to do. Actually, the hardest part is not the science. Science is good, but the most difficult part, in my experience, is changing mentalities. What's called change management, which we have accomplished, given that we have been together with them for many, many, many years. That's one example. Here's another medical example. You know, in the last 15, 20 years, 50% of my work is on healthcare, so it's 50% of the examples I chose. I apologize for being a little bit boring on that, but these are the ones I know better, so therefore. But it's not only going to be health, there will be some others. So the other example is detecting the excessive treatment of urinary tract infection, UTIs for short. In fact, one of the best friends of my parents was lost on a UTI in Erythrostavros. I remember it distinctly. I was 10 years old, and my best friend's father passed because of that. It's not a minor matter. And the question is, you need to detect it. This is typically a disease that people often acquire within the hospital. And sometimes, if it's not appropriately detected and treated, it's deadly. But on the other hand, at least in the United States hospital, there's a huge overtreatment. They give UTI, they give exams to almost 95%, yet only a few percentage, maybe 5% of the people have UTIs. So they spend a lot of money doing unnecessary tests for the benefit, of course, of being 100%, but money is lost. So it's about of the order of a few $1 billion, the cost of this overdiagnosis. We have developed a system, again, using multimodal AI, using data, tabular data, images, and so forth, that is capable of diminishing the tests by at least 50% and only missing few. Nothing is perfect. I often say perfection is outside the human condition and obviously outside the computer condition. But for example, this is a graph in which you observe that if you avoid roughly per month 50% of the tests, let's say you you save 2,400 tests, you only miss 50 UTIs. And if you only, let's say, save only roughly 1,000, you only have 10 occurrences per month. So you observe the trade-offs. And the advantage of UTIs, even if you detect it the first time, because the symptoms will continue, you will detect it the second time. It's not as deadly, because these are slow-moving disease. That's another example of the practical application of detecting this type of diseases. This is one of my most exciting topics. So if you were sleeping, please rejoin. I promise you it's an exciting topic because it will affect all of you. Of course, it's a bet, but it's an educated bet. So what is this? So many of you have visited the emergency department in the hospital, I'm certain. I have visited once. So you go to this, then there is you speak with a nurse, it gets you, the nurse discusses with you the case, makes a summary, they put some vitals, this is called triage. This is prior to entering the ED, the emergency department. And all this information, the vitals, the language, as well as historical data that might be available for you, is sent to the nurses and doctors inside the emergency department. Based on this, they make a diagnosis, and they also propose new tests. For example, so you do an X-ray, should you do an ultrasound, and so forth. And then based on these results, it all continues. Imagine a system that utilizes multimodal, including language, in which all of it is automated as an advisor to the physician. You might say, science fiction. It is reality today. We have actually built a system that does that. And we tested in the environment of the Harvard system. And what we have found that you get 95% of the time, the top initially 5 diagnoses contain the accurate one, just from the beginning. And then afterwards, with one set of tests, with 95% of the time, the top 3 contain the correct one. And so you narrow the diagnosis more and more and more. So, and imagine having that as an advisor in your iPhone. So imagine you have an advisor in your iPhone that you can say, oh boy, I cannot breathe well, I have high fever. You ask the advisor, not the ChatGPT. ChatGPT is not as strong in that. You have to use significant medical knowledge to train generative AI models. And what we have found is that you can do better and better and better every time you iterate. Again, it sounds like science fiction. I think it will be within our lives in years, in a year. And to demonstrate that, it's not only research institutions, the major companies of the world, Google, Microsoft, have huge efforts on that. Why? Because this healthcare is a multi-trillion-dollar business. Anybody who solves this problem will actually make a difference in financially, which is why they do it, but also for humanity. You can actually improve lives. So we have put some effort on that, and we're excited about it. So these are the 3 examples I have on health. I gave you a bit of an overdose. I will compensate by telling you something I think is exciting. One of the most important problems of the world is world hunger. So the ability, and this is in Africa, we use satellite data. In fact, there's a company that we started with some of my students called Ground Truth Analytics. So this company takes satellite data, atmospheric data, and makes a cartography of the entire continent in the world, but we only at the moment have focused on Africa, where the issue of world hunger, Africa's hunger, is very significant. These areas are primarily agricultural economies, and the very much 70% of the revenue of multiple countries are only agriculture. Greece also has a significant agricultural component, so I bet it might be relevant for Greece, although we don't have experience with the Greek environment. So what this thing does, and this is, you see a little bit of an example, we take all of this, we find a complete depiction of every parcel of lands in a country. We detect during the season the health of the plant, so we can detect early on if something goes on, and therefore avoiding losing the entire production for the year. And also proposes what fertilizers to use and what rotation of crops, how often, when to change it from corn to tomatoes to cocoa and so forth. I mean, this is an important decision. As I told you, many of these countries, actually all of them, 70–80% of their economies is agricultural. And the major use of these technologies is actually the governments, because the governments care very much about the tax revenue. So having a system that for the entire country shows the promise, what to expect and avoids, I think, is a reasonably significant application. Hurricanes, also we have, this actually, to be honest, when we started this, it was just, I was curious why we don't use the data, and what we have found is that utilizing all of this data that I told you, you can, images, atmospheric data, you can make predictions about the direction and magnitude of hurricanes, which is particularly acute in a global warming environment. At least in the United States, every summer, August, September, there are major storms that start from the Caribbean and they hit New York, Dallas, Florida, major disasters. I don't know if you remember, Katrina in 2006 in New Orleans flattened the city, 3,000 people died. And what we have found, and the reason, the mode of failure there is that there are 2 models, the American model and the European model. Both are Navier-Stokes based. New Orleans was here. The American model said it will hit there. The European model will hit there, and it hit right through. So it's not an insignificant problem, which is, because of the climate change, is important even more. And I would say what we have found is that if you combine the Navier-Stokes equations, the classical approach with all this data in a multimodal way, you actually get 20% better predictions, which, I believe that this might be interesting. We are currently in discussions with the meteorological department, which is in the southern United States, to utilize these methods. And there's awareness that of the power of AI on the topic, so in such a way that the major companies, Google in particular, has invested serious amounts of money in this effort. So, and my final example, which is a nice transition to education, is how to use AI for improving education. To be honest, when I first started, you heard, I started as the vice provost in September. I did not, of course, I'm an observer and reasonably knowledgeable on AI and its applications. What I saw the last year exceeded my already high expectations. I'll tell you more about it. But the idea would be, and this is something we use in open learning, the advantage of being surrounded by very talented young people is that, they have many exciting ideas and we have an excellent engineering team who takes some of that, contributes themselves, and then implements it in high volume in open learning. More on this in a minute. But it is, I would say, it's a very exciting future for which I'll tell you more in a minute. So I gave you some examples, several in healthcare, which represents about 50% of my work, agriculture, which is an example, climate, and education. There are many, many others. When I mean universal, I do believe, and you will see how strong I believe that AI will affect every field. And I did not cover social scientists for my friend Vaso. There are many, many examples where, this is not only, I don't work in social science, but I see others who contribute. I do believe that there is a significant need, not only for engineering schools like ours, but for the world to increase our understanding and depth in artificial intelligence. So with this, I now make a transition to the second part of, probably people who know me know that I'm not a huge, I'm not an administrator. I mean, Medeo knows me well. It's not my style, I try to contribute in other ways. So in fact, with some of my friends, George also was present, and we started an effort to do what is called universal AI. I'll tell you more. Not through MIT, through ourselves. I'm an entrepreneur, I know how to start companies and so forth. And then I was asked by the provost at MIT at the time to serve in a committee that would select the next vice provost for open learning. Open learning is a serious business at MIT, I'll tell you more. Because I said no to her 5 times, I said, let me do it once, let me serve, so that and then I can refuse another 5 times. But then I recognized during these deliberations, in fact, perhaps she had a plan. I said, boy, I could do universal AI within MIT. And then not only do my friends and myself, who can utilize the power of 1,000+ professors that MIT has. So somehow, somewhat reluctantly, but in the end I accepted, I became a vice provost for open learning. What is open learning? Open learning, who here has taken an open courseware class? OCW. Really? I was expecting more. OCW is what MIT did 25 years ago. Then President Vest, a very distinguished man who is not with us, is not alive, said, we are going to open all our classes at MIT, 3,000 classes to the world. So now every single class, meaning the slides, the lecture notes, all the materials, but not the actual lectures, is available to the world, free of charge. I consider this the home run of open learning. And my hope is we'll do a second home run with what I'm about to say. So, and then 12 years later, 2012, 2013, we started MOOCs, the massively online classes, of which we have, at MIT, we have 300 of them. These are now the actual lectures with the presentations and the whole sort of thing. My engagement, which is really the reason, I was curious about that. So in 2013, I created the second MOOC that MIT has developed. The first was actually a very exciting class. It's called The Secret of Life. One of my colleagues, Eric Lander, it's a biology class. It also has a fantastic title. You cannot beat Secret of Life. Huh? But it's not just the title. It has a substantive, high-quality class. If you have a chance, take a look at it. And I have created another class, the Analytics Edge, that over maybe 10 years from the time, 11 years, it attracted about 1 million learners. And I would like to say 2 examples of the power of this education. At MIT, we educate about 11,000 students, about 1 in 1 million, right? That's what we have, multiple. I recognize at least 6 graduates of MIT that, actually 8. Admittedly, you educate, like the Technical University educates some of the best Greeks in engineering and sciences. So does MIT, but this is the world. So we educate about 1 in 1 million. Very, very smart kids, all right? But 11,000, so during my career, and I had a lot of students, I have classes with a lot of students, hundreds of them. If I have educated 15,000 students in a 40 years career, is an overestimate, right? Nothing to be ashamed of, but it's not billions or millions, right? But with one class, we educated 1 million people. 2 examples of its effect. I was, with Georgia actually, I was in a conference in Warsaw, one of the national conferences. Georgia was sitting over there, I was sitting here talking with somebody, and I see a very attractive lady, young lady, Italian, whom I did not know, comes and embraces me. Thank you, professor, blah, 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 and so forth. Georgia was there. So, and then I recognized this is a 35-year-old Italian lady, which 10 years earlier had a PhD from Rome in not a very quantitative field. And she decided to stay home, had 2 children, and 10 years later, when he was 34, decided to come back, because the children now has grown, to take my class, the Analytics Edge, learn from what appears to be useful things, and then she found a job in Luxembourg, and it changed her life. That's one example. Second example, similar in nature, but very different, very dramatic in some ways. I was in New Delhi, and I see a young kid, 19, 20 years old, who not only embraces me, comes down to, I mean, it's embarrassing to say, but she treated me in a godlike way. I mean, this is embarrassing, I have to admit, but this is the truth. And he told me that he was in the slums in, in India. For those of you who have been there, you know that near huge luxury, there are the slums, right? And he actually took the class in an internet cafe, free of charge. He learned useful things. He went to the IT industry of India at age 20, 21, and then moved his family to an apartment. No charge, right? I was impressed by these stories. I have others, but you get the sense that this education, especially if you take your perspective outside of the campus and so forth, but you look at the world, can have a very material effect. I mean, our very smart MIT students or National Technical University, obviously they help their lives. Education has also a power. But at the level we are talking about, it's an exponential change. So this was sort of the image I had, that education, appropriately done at scale, can actually have a material effect in the world. This is my prior influences, which tries to explain why I took the job of Vice Provost. First observation. Yes, Foti, I'm glad. A+. Tell me. Can you hear me without? Not. Foti.
Do you have any microphone?
No, but I.
So I should try to speak up.
Yeah, and I'll repeat the question, assuming I understand it.
Before the question, I have to thank you very much for your nice work.
I don't say compliments, Foti. I mean what I say.
And I'm very proud. Okay. Now, speaking about education, because I'm giving also lectures on these educations. And the thing is that when we make the comparative between the human brain and the computer brain, the human brain comes empty.
The human what?
The computer brain comes empty.
Brain, okay.
The brain.
Yeah,
The brain.
okay.
There are two empty things. And we start educating our kids.
Okay.
But when they are actually in university, they have a big amount of learning.
They are not empty.
They are not empty anymore.
And you don't like what is there.
So, in my experience, speaking about doctors, they cannot understand what the child wants to do. So,
But there are two aspects of life. One would say this is what happens, or we can change it. And my proposal is will change it.
My proposal is it should be a great effort from the government and the state to educate the mothers and the young children teachers to start educating them the right way. So, little by little, we will have human brains that can receive all this information.
So this was not a question. Yeah. Remarks are welcome. Questions
Is this feasible?
All right.
Is this feasible?
Who am I to know that? The only thing is to aspire to change and attempt. Especially if you take the world with you, chances are you succeed. That's my aspiration. I'll tell you more. This is not just an empty thought. Some evidence that I'm saying is valid. So, is it okay if I speak? I don't like. Is it okay if I? Do you hear me in the back? Vasilina, can you hear me? Okay, good. I'll try to speak in the next 5 minutes. Okay, so the idea is the following. So let's think about how this school, the National Technical University, this university, is designed. MIT is no different. So at MIT, the life. Can I take it?
For live streaming.
Okay. All right. So let's think how universities, including this university, are designed. MIT is no different. MIT, for example, has 26 departments. They have numbers. Course 1 is civil engineering. Is there anybody who is a graduate of civil engineering? Haha. 2. The lady. Which civil? Number 2 is mechanical engineering. I know we have at least one graduate from that department. Yes? Come on. More than 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 15 is School of Management, where Georgia and I are professors, right? So they are designed vertically. That's how it is designed. Okay? However, look at problems of the world. Climate, health, they are not vertical, they are horizontal. Artificial intelligence touches every single department at MIT and far beyond, right? Climate change. Climate is not a physics problem, it's not an engineering problem. It has an atmospheric component, it has a social component, it has a geographic component, name it. Healthcare, well, it touches everything, right? As well as manufacturing. Perhaps less, but a lot of things are affected. So in other words, even though knowledge is organized vertically, at least it was organized in the last 200 years or so, the actual problems of the world, at least the significant ones, are horizontal, right? Yet we don't teach them in this way. What we teach is fluid mechanics. There's a class, Fluid Mechanics 1. I bet my friends in mechanical engineering have taken these classes. Am I correct? So it's not how to utilize the totality of knowledge to teach it. Okay? So I think that's an opportunity. So this is the second influence. And of course, for those of you who know me, I definitely put almost unrealistic. Sometimes 1 billion people is a lot of people. 1 in 7 people might say Bertsimas has lost it, maybe. But I have the following view of life. You put very high objectives. You try to break the world record. Most likely you won't succeed, but maybe you will win the Olympic gold medal. Medals have higher duration because you keep it. Records easily, and you can break them. But you see what I mean? Who knows if we get 1 billion? Who does? But by attempting and moving the world, I bet we can achieve significant benefits to the world. So the way, though, if you think our objective is not the 11,000 students of MIT or the 12,000 students of National Technical University of Athens, but 1 billion people, you have to change the perspective. You cannot teach mathematical modeling like MIT students because they, even in this very smart audience, if I explain machine learning with mathematical ways, very soon, politely, you would leave the room. Correctly, by the way, I would have done it myself. But if you teach in an appropriate pedagogy, accessible, and I'll give you an example of what I mean by that. So you change how you teach, because now the audience is larger. You motivate by practical applications. Our young people, at least the people I speak with, have great interest if you tell them why they are learning something, as if you tell them, let me explain the mathematical equations of blah, blah, blah. A natural question, they're, of course, in the age 18 to 20, they might not ask it, but they are thinking about it. Why am I doing that? But if you explain what is the application, they have tolerance. Third, and this is something I learned primarily this year, the lecture I give to you all today is not personalized. Lukas and Athina hear exactly the same lecture from me. It's definitely not personalized. But imagine my communication to you is online. And then what Lukas, there's generative AI who can change the lecture according to what Lukas understands or likes. Similarly with Athina, similarly with Jenny. So this is, in my opinion, again, one might say science fiction. Wait, you will see a slide, you will see a demonstration that is not, I used to believe it was science fiction. I don't. I mean, my students, primarily the young people, convince me that this is not science fiction. It's not so much that we expect in open learning to give it to the world February, March 2026. So imminent, in other words. And finally, don't teach one discipline, because the problems are not one discipline, but multiple disciplines together, as the problems of the world dictate. So this means that you have to change the perspective of how to teach, and how and what as well. So these qualities that I mentioned come to life in what is called now universal AI. So first, it has to have an applied and practical education in AI for a large audience, number one. Number two, it's universal in access as well as breadth. I will concretize these statements in a minute. It has also domain-specific applications. You heard Yanis to talk about verticals more in a minute, and augmented by generative AI tutors. If you have 1 billion learners, clearly there are not enough TAs. Where are the TAs? So the only way to scale, you have to have tutors that are currently, it's not science fiction, it's reality. And this one is not reality, we have it already, starting in September. It's already, actually. So the idea was to do the following. And in that, I mean, 40 years at MIT, I have some currency with my colleagues, friends, and so forth. So 20 of them were friends and family, including George, Lee. But then we opened it to other faculty. We now have about 30 MIT faculty. You don't know MIT faculty well. They are not the easiest people to join. They are entrepreneurs and strong beliefs and so forth. But at least 30. 20 friends and family, 10, I did not know them before. So it has universal AI, and I'll tell you why we call it universal. It has 3 components. The first is foundational. Again, the audience is everybody. Mathematicians, geologists, biologists, doctors, law students, and so forth. It's really universal. That's the first aspect of universality, that the audience is very large. And it covers basic Python, not for teaching people how to program, but how to at least parse a computer program so they can hit and understand. Basic stuff. meaning stuff that I personally can run. If you have very sophisticated, it's outside my ability. Analytics, machine learning, multimodal AI, prescriptive, and so forth. This is sort of the basic material, but the pedagogy is simple. How do I, for example, teach classification? Classification is yes or no. Something happened or did not happen. For example, the biggest killer in the world is heart attacks, coronary heart disease. 60% of the deaths in the world is because of coronary heart disease. So, there has been data. So, this problem doesn't need a lot of motivation. Everybody is motivated. Life and death is everybody's motivated by that. You give them data. In this case, the Framingham Heart Study. This is a major study in cardiology from 1948 to the day that discovered what we know about coronary heart disease to the day. So this data is available in an anonymized format. So we offer this data to the students. We also give them codes that implement some of the classification methods. We don't cover too much about the mathematics because probably they don't care. They run it, and they observe that some of the factors that affect heart disease are the ones that we currently utilize in our physicals. Cholesterol level, smoking, weight, particularly overweight, and all the other factors. If you have diabetes and so forth. In other words, just on data with a motivation of a real world problem, you actually learn a lot of things about life. And people, I believe, people connect. That's one example, one lecture, one of the 60, right? So that's the foundational piece. The second, what I call vertical, is what I call AI plus X for all X, because it hits everybody. So we have modules like AI and marketing, AI and entrepreneurship, AI and drug design, AI and name it, and everything. And social science, actually one of my, I know next to nothing about this, but one of my colleagues, I recently twisted his hand to actually develop something. He promised, but he needs further attention. Also, MIT doesn't have a huge number of social scientists. It's primarily a science and engineering school, although we still have. So that's the verticals. And then all of it is supported by tutors. So this is the second aspect of universality. The first is the audience is universal. The second is that all the fields are represented. So it is something that is not geared for the experts in computer science. They should not be taking this class. Experts in computer science, they should take advanced courses. But with that, however, MIT has about 1,100 undergraduates a year. 650 of them become computer science majors. So I teach the second class. They take their methods, they come to my class, I call it Analytics for a Better World, about 80, 90 students. And for the life of me, they don't have a clue on applications. They are very smart kids. They know program, blah, 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 much better than me. But they don't have a clue on why we are doing what we are doing. They take this class, which is similar philosophy, and they now at least understand why. So even the very smart MIT kids could benefit from this. I have ample evidence of the matter. So that's the second notion of universality. The third is how we plan to deliver it. So to get from 0 to 1 billion, if you go one by one, I wish us luck. And we know that EDX unfortunately failed. That is, MIT actually sold the business in 2022 to another company that later on got bankrupt. B2C, business to consumers, customers, is not a strong financial model. Let's put it this way, nobody has figured out how to monetize it so that it doesn't bankrupt the institutions. So my hope would be to offer it to institutions. Not at a very high price, at a price that basically covers our costs, plus a little bit so we can invest in all the things we do. And not everybody has to pay. I mean, if you go to Ivory Coast, nothing against them, but they don't have a lot of resources. So key here is that we don't bankrupt totally. It doesn't have to have, everybody has to pay the same price because it's not feasible. I mean, a company, for example, Merck, that has 100,000 people, might afford a slightly higher price, and the extra thing we apply to others. It's like the Robin Hood mentality, although I don't rob anybody. So, and in particular, this is, I think, the role of foundations. Foundations, and you heard about the National Technical University, it is, admittedly, the National Technical University of Athens, it was first in my thinking, for obviously two reasons. I understand, I mean, at least I think I understand, the environment. I'm a graduate. I know its potential, and obviously, in addition to I would like to help Greece. I mean, I've tried it before unsuccessfully. Some of you know my history, but I would like to do it. And the best thing to do is to do it for all of Greece. I would like to do the National Technical University. Of course, has an unusual position in Greece. Everybody looks at what this institution does, but the aspiration to do it in the world. So. So that's the reason we call universal. That is, its aspirations anyway is high. Now, I told you about tutors. We have, so how would it work for this institution? So we have a website at MIT called Learn MIT EDU. It's functional. You can take a look at it. And we are going to we are already moving all of the material that we have developed, when we, meaning the collective we, all of MIT, in that website. So in addition to Universal AI, and then we are following up with other areas. We have a climate initiative, we have a biology initiative, an energy initiative, manufacturing initiative, and a health initiative, and hopefully a humanities initiative, if I find the right people to lead it, because I personally don't know anything about it. So, so the idea would be to offer to the entire institution a single sign-on. All the faculty, or the personnel, or the staff members, all the students will have access. And then this is supported by a guidance system. So let's say if a first-year student in civil engineering would like to ask about a particular, something particular to their fields, they can ask a question, and because it is the system, the underlying system is a Gen AI system, it tells you, gives personalized advice to the student, because it knows also the history of the person. That's the first Gen AI system that's operational. The second is the tutor. The tutor, and the best thing, of course, is to try it, but it has empathy. Humans have empathy. At least the better humans have empathy. So when you have a teacher, the teacher typically understands, and surprisingly, the tutor has this human-like quality. It's not perhaps an A+ system, but you know my views on perfection. It's unachievable, but it's pretty damn good. I have used it in last semester in one of my classes, the Analytics Edge, about maybe 60, I don't remember the exact number of students. And the students, these are executive MBAs. This is a demanding crowd. If there's anything that they don't like, they complain. In this particular case, they would have complained to Georgia. But they didn't, because they didn't. So they complained because it wasn't given to them earlier. So, I mean, that's pretty good. I mean, of course, they had there were some failures. There is a bit of hallucination 1-2% of the time. They tell you irrelevant things. But so are humans sometimes. So this is the personalization today. We have also conversational TA and so forth. But then we are working on things in the future, which are, it's not, why do I believe it's realistic to get 1 billion learners? We plan to have translations. We have 10 major languages. Unfortunately, Greek is not one of them, but maybe one of you can help us translate, because Greece is only 10 million people. You know, Chinese is 1.6 billion people. Hindu is 1.5 billion people. So the 10 major languages of the world, we have mobilized our global languages department, about 9 languages. They don't have Hindu, they have everything else, is to use automatic translation, something that we have done a reasonable job. I mean, we, meaning collectively the world, but then have some human supervision. Second, and quite importantly, mobile delivery. If you go to Africa, only 10% of the people have a computer. 90% don't have any computer, but they have a cell phone. So if you deliver it in a mobile technology, in a reasonably friendly way in their language, the bet is, I don't know, but the bet is they will use more, it will have higher penetration. And especially if it is reasonably free, because even if you ask $20 of them, they don't have it. So it has to be appropriate for the environment. Some institutions, for example, I have relations with Morocco, a particular university, it's like a National Technical University of Athens, they adopted it. But then the senior leadership of the firm that has started a company called OCP, it's the largest fertilizer company in the world, who supports the university, decided to give this to all 17 Moroccan universities. So now we'll have access to all Moroccan universities in French, which is the major language. In Arabic as well, but French everybody speaks. So there are tools that we are currently working that, now I left the last thing as a demonstration because honestly to God, I did not believe this. So the left is me developing a real lecture, one of the Universal AI lectures, for describing linear regression to a broad audience. And I use an example of predicting wine, understanding quality of wine, which is a cute example in the sense something very qualitative. How do you, I mean, Greece, unlike the Muslim countries, many people in Greece drink, at least accept that they drink in public. So, so people understand quality of wine by tasting. Not quantitative, fair to say. So we use physical measurements to understand the quantitative aspect of quality, wine realizations in auctions. But let's say the audience, this is on the left. Let me give you some of the details of multiple linear regression models. Let me give you some of the details of multiple linear regression model. We are given data of the dependent variable yi, the price realization of auction I, and independent variables x subscript I superscript 1, the age of the wine, xi2, the average growing season temperature, xi3, the harvest rain, xi4, the winter rain. The index I refers to the ith auction. The student doesn't care about wine. Many students don't. But let's say studies planetary science and then says, I would like to have a description of linear regression in the context of planetary science. Something I personally know next to nothing about. With GenAI, this is what happened. I did not do this.
We are given data of the
the
average surface temperature of planet.
Surface temperature of planet I, and independent variables xi1, the distance from the sun, xi2, the atmospheric composition, xi3, the axial tilt, xi4, the orbital eccentricity. It took 2 minutes to change the graphics, not only the language, the graphics, and then also imitate my voice. I mean, it's not perfect, but pretty good. So again, perfection. Huh? So, and the idea is the following. Every lecture, let's call it 30 slides, the first 5, you have a simple assessment. You try to understand the degree of understanding of comprehension of the learner. Based on this, you change the lecture. Not we, the humans, we, the computer. Change the lecture, the slides, the examples, and so forth. Tries again, 10 lectures, 10 after another piece. Again, in other words, online, this is what I call personalization at scale. And what I have found is that if this is my personal experience, is that if people receive knowledge that they care about in ways they understand, chances are good things will happen. At least, again, another bet. So that's sort of, it is early stages, but I believe in early primarily because, so it has already been improved because yesterday the 2 of my students who work on this has already given me something what I thought was significantly better than this, because it changed the entire, not just the example, the entire lecture, having a more, not only a different example, but even the pedagogical approach that is different. So the vision I presented is research, where I do believe that institutions, in my opinion, need to adapt to a world where AI will touch all the research knowledge and therefore affect how we learn, not only topics and approaches, but utilizing AI to educate, personalization at scale, tutors and so forth. That's, and then aspiring to educate 1 billion learners in a way that I hope, anyway, that's the aspiration, that good things will happen to the world. I mean, my view is that the people who lose their job is not by machines. They lose it to people who know AI and will substitute the people who don't know AI. That's my bet. This has happened in the past. In the revolution in the let's say 1900s, there were many people were displaced by what had happened with machines. But overall, productivity in the world improved substantially. People had jobs, but different jobs. I think this will happen with AI. I bet serious money on that. And by educating at least the art of the feasible, I believe good things will happen. I have one final example to give you. I mean, I work with Hartford Healthcare. You detected it because I have 3 examples from there in the last 8-9 years. I presented, I didn't call it universal AI in person. We had two different courses, 9 lectures over time, one time and another 9. There were roughly 300 people, 100 in person because that's the audience that fit in the auditorium, and 200 remotely. So currently we have about 80 to 100 physicians collaborating with my group on AI. They don't know. They know the art of the feasible. Of course, 9 lectures, they don't know it in depth. But they, like the subdural hematoma, the gentleman, the doctor who is leading this effort, meets with us 7 o'clock in the morning, 9 o'clock at night. I mean, he's very motivated. So I believe you can change perception. So back to Foti's remark, my view is if you show to the world the art of the feasible, even if they don't fully understand everything. I don't understand multiple things. People over time, especially in a cultural environment that is moving, my observation is, my personal experience is that things change. Might take time, but things change. And with that hopeful thought, I open it for question. Nico.
So, Professor Bertsimas, this is intriguing. Knowing you, looking at your passion, you're going to exceed 1 billion learners, I'm sure.
I already have 200.
Well, so the question needs a preamble, but I have a question.
Please.
So out of these 1 billion plus learners, there is going to be a subset of bad people. There's going to be another subset of clever people. And between them, there's going to be a smaller subset of clever bad people who using multimodal approaches.
No, I get you, Nico.
Looking, through drones and all of that stuff, they can develop an army of millions that creates havoc to the world.
Yeah, this is
so
what
the question is, can this universal AI teach values to the 1 billion people?
Very good question, Nico. And I don't claim to have all the answers. But technologies happen whether we want it or not want it. Take nuclear energy. Nuclear energy is the principal force for energy in Denmark and in France. At the same time, bad, good, I do not know, they bombed Nagasaki and Hiroshima. So my view is the following. The fact that AI would affect the world, I have no doubt about that. I mean, if somebody has doubt, I'm sorry, you have not been observing. What we can do as educators and so forth is to influence the world, but first of all, educating everybody, at least, because at the moment, people believe that AI is ChatGPT. It's not. It's actually, that's not why I'm excited about. But the hope is that by educating a lot of people, including people in government, a gentleman from Secretary General of one of the ministries, at least it was introduced to me, even people in the government who are in a position of power to affect it, I hope, will affect positively legislation and so forth. It is my belief, Nico, and I know you believe that because you were educated all your life, education can affect the world positively. That's the extent of what I can do. Obviously, I don't control what happens.
My question is, can we channel the education also to educate this 1 billion, whatever, through
on values?
On values. Which values?
Do no harm, for example. Right? Of course we can. Of course we can. The question is, bad people, as you say, intelligent bad people, you tell them about values, you teach them about, you can affect, but you really affect everybody? No. But on the other hand, if we don't do it, let's look at the counterfactuals. What would have happened in the world if we don't educate? Then there is no positive force.
No, we got to educate. We got to educate, for sure.
You are, look, Nico, you are, I'm sorry to say, it's a good thing actually. You are aiming like my students, perfection. You know, the people I have at MIT want perfect. One of my realizations in life is that's actually not a great thing to look for perfection because it's unachievable. What I'm trying to do is look for excellence, not perfection because I know it's unachievable. Hopefully we'll get very good.
Arguing for perfection.
Not my Georgia. She already married me. It's not perfection. Yanni. There are some mistakes. Yes, Yanni.
Okay, thank you very much for your intriguing speech. Now, I'm coming to something different because I cannot abandon my X property of Erect. Okay.
You can use, so I can sit down.
I cannot abandon my X property of Rector of NTUA. Now you said, this is very interesting, that AI Universal brings the need for different approach for different targets. So you have to know where to target, you have to be practical. Now this causes a whole different approach also for the university knowledge. You said before, you have 80 or 90 students that arrive in your class. They are excellent at what they are doing with AI, but they don't know why they do. So universities should change. Now universities are famous for their very slow pace.
True.
They have been already left behind. Now, I guess people like you that has this very deep knowledge of what AI is doing, okay, we also have, but I guess you have better, should come with proposals of how we change, perhaps. Do we have to need 9 engineering schools? Because you said before engineering and 3 hours, I don't remember the
I understand.
Said, okay, it's intermodal. Now, we have to change even this idea. What do we have to teach our students to be targeted? What are the skills they need? What is the knowledge they need to understand, to be more pathetic, as you said? Or to
empathetic, not pathetic. Empathy, yeah. Okay, got it, yeah.
Okay, I'm talking...
No, I understand.
I'm talking English for your French. Actually, I would prefer to talk in my mother tongue. So, to be empathetic, and what would they need actually? Because now, look, civil engineering, I'm a civil engineer, I don't use, raise my hand in questions like that, but we have 4 or 5 statics, my dear colleague. Now, do we need 5 statics or 5 AI? We don't. We need other knowledge, we need other approach. So this is being left, and I guess also in MIT, if your students don't know why they come to AI.
Well, this is your business. What this institution does, I'm sorry to say, it's not my job to tell you. What I can tell you is other examples I have seen working. I've seen the following thing working. You can still maintain the departments and so forth. You already started it. I know that George Samu told me that you have I'm very proud of that actually for you guys. You have a class across departments, at least many departments. I don't remember how many. But this is a step in the right direction. At MIT, we have the so-called Schwarzman College of Computing. MIT had, for 70 years, only 5 schools. 3 years ago, it started a horizontal, we call it college, not even a school. The idea was to infuse AI. It's not called AI because of politics. It's called computing, but everybody knows what it means. So it has, in a sense, the horizontal vision, and also in order to be palatable to the university politics, which everywhere in the world is, this is not only a Greek thing, it's a universal thing. It is currently an experiment, but a helpful experiment. For example, Georgia and other people are all in this area. I would like this to succeed because I think that's the future. So here's a proposal, Yanni. Think about doing something similar and universal AI gives you a chance because you already have high quality people that are knowledgeable, you add universal AI, and now you can educate all the topographers, mechanical engineers, all chemical engineers and so forth, in something that they better learn it, because if they don't, they will be behind. Now, the aspects. Do we do 3 courses in this is beyond my knowledge. I don't even know one class in. But I would recommend that you think as an institution about, and universal AI is a good opportunity to think about AI for the entire university and to educate the young people who are very capable in what AI can do, not putting as a constraint that it has to be what we have done for 200 years. It's not that we have done nonsense. We have done good things. But please adapt, because the world is adapting no matter what we do. This is true for MIT, for example. It's not. And in addition, we had 50 positions. We hired 25 people already. These are young people that have 2 affiliations. Once with the college, once with the department. We have hired somebody in political science who has an understanding of AI as well as political science. One of the classes they teach is for the entire university, for the college, that affects everybody, and one is in the department. I recognize the government and so forth. I have some experiences on that, not as big as you have, but I have some. The system is not very flexible. Of course, I recognize that. But my view is the following. As people who know me, I do not accept no's. Sometimes I fail, actually more often. But at least I try. I think we should try, because the world, that's an opportunity. I chose this particular talk because it's an optimistic view of the world. That is, this institution has multiple ingredients. It has high quality, talented students, among the best actually the best engineering schools in Greece. This is, of course, a self-serving comment. But the second is you have high quality faculty, broad faculty, you have a lot of forces. Maybe the amount of money is not gigantic.
Is there a plan for collaboration with this faculty within the university?
That's true. I did not mention that. A mistake. Thank you, George. So I do not, by the way, believe that MIT is the source of every knowledge. It is not. Already I believed it. George is already involved. Other people are involved. So phase 1 is what we offer now. Primarily MIT faculty, and then we control quality. Now, every student will have access. Phase 2, the good faculty of this institution or whatever other institution that can create classes or modules that are compatible in pedagogy, they can offer it to their students in the MIT platform. And phase 3, some of the best of these classes around the world, we can take and make them available to everybody. See, one of the reasons, in my opinion, Coursera, edX did not succeed as well as it could is because it opened it to everybody. Fantastic things and very poor things. The position, at least I have at MIT, is we can control quality. So that when somebody enters that, they have some perception that they are getting high-quality education. I mean, if somebody comes to this institution, they have an expectation, I had this expectation, I continue to have, is that what is being offered is a quality course, maybe not A+, but not F. I would like to maintain that for everything that we do. So I would like the world to contribute, because only people who are egocentric, and I believe MIT has high-quality faculty, but intelligence is distributed. So I'm hoping that this will happen, and that could be an invitation to many of you. Universal AI, as you heard, is happening. Please contribute. I don't guarantee we'll accept, but I guarantee we'll consider. So, speak about globalization. People talk about globalization. I'm sorry to say, this is an opportunity for this institution to achieve globalization truly. And then the other aspect that is important is that I don't believe few people alone could reach 1 billion learners. You have to be completely naive to believe that. MIT has 150,000 alumni. I bet we have 20 alumni in this room, maybe more. I gave a presentation in France. George and I were in Paris the other day. There were about 20 alumni. You could see the enthusiasm. It's there. Yesterday we spoke in Athens College. We had multiple people. There was enthusiasm, especially about everybody, but particularly about alumni, because they feel that they were the beneficiaries of a great education. And people mean generally well. I mean, they are hopefully good people that are also clever, not the bad. So my hope is that all will contribute. In other words, this is a call to arms. Vasily?
Will you offer the tech stack?
I'm sorry, what?
Will you offer the tech stack to people that they want to contribute content?
Yeah, I mean, everybody will be within Learn.
This is also my question.
I'm sorry to say this is my ignorance. What does it mean, tech stack?
Is the platform that is built on open source, for example?
It's open source. It's OpenEdX. It's OpenEdX. So I asked my guys, software engineer, what should the platform I should bet the house on? And they told me OpenEdX. Because I don't know what OpenEdX is at the time. That's what we are doing. It's an open source. It is one of the good things. I had some criticism about edX, but this is a good thing. They created a platform that is open to the world, and we are building on that. So that's the hope, anyway. My understanding of this is not fantastic. I asked the engineering team. They tell me, I trust them. They are good people. This I guarantee. I asked before. Yes, sir.
So this was one of my questions. The other one, you did in the first part of the talk, a big issue about AI these days is explainability. Got you. Yeah. So you have a question before I ask.
Yeah. Right. Look, in my infinite wisdom, in the beginning, and some of my students know, I was skeptical about deep learning because the dumb thing is a black box and nobody understands. And I did not pay too much attention. But then I observe how strong it is. And I say, I'm an idiot. I mean, why? I mean, maybe this is not, I forgot what I was teaching, that perfection is outside. Think about the third example. The third example of making a diagnosis and so forth, not only is accurate, it has, because of Gen AI, a description of why. It's not perfect, but it gives you an explanation. 5 years ago, it was out of reach and so forth. Thank God I made the change. Now, it is within reach. We saw these results to some of our doctor friends. They say it makes sense. And when it doesn't, we change the algorithm for that. So I believe it's not perfect, of course. I mean, but huge progress has been made. And the person talking is somebody who's very critical about the explainability. Because if you have, I lost my father to cancer, and we have developed an algorithm that says to the patient, do the chemotherapy that day, yes or no, right? And I said, how am I going to convince a doctor if I say do it or don't do it without any explanation? And the answer is, at the time, we didn't have explanations. Now we do. And it's pretty good. It's not A+, but it's B. And but do you think the human explanations is an A+? Good luck on that.
No, then you can blame the human.
You can blame me. It's okay. But it's good for the world, at least in my opinion. Look, we are in a trajectory. I mean, and to say it's not perfect, it's not the right position in life. I'm sorry for the, yes, sir. What's your name, sir?
Yeah, my name is Perlatiras and I'm the superintendent of the Hellenic Naval Academy.
Okay.
So my question...
Defense is one of our verticals.
Yeah, I know. So I think that AI is a tool. This is my perception. So the question is that in the future, AI maybe will substitute the teachers, or you, and okay, in the domains like mathematics or physics, maybe this is feasible. But for example, in leadership, maritime leaders, for example, where other parts also are significant, ethos,
I see.
Things like that, is it so feasible?
My objective is not to substitute the humans. I hope I did not. My objective is to educate humanity in such a way that we develop leaders that are knowledgeable. What do you prefer? Leaders that do know nothing about AI or leaders that know? Now, if it substitutes the teachers, I don't believe that's at the current level is feasible, but it might be. But this will happen independent of me. This will happen. And I'd rather have the world moving as opposed to, sleeping and so forth. That's the position I take. But I have no clue on whether AI will replace humans. I doubt it, but I'm not certain of that. I cannot guarantee. Yes, Andrea?
We are talking about these developments at the highest level of education, which is universities.
Not true.
Okay, the title of your talk is university.
Because look at the audience.
Sure, right. But I'm wondering if you want to share briefly with us your thoughts regarding the lower level of education, plus a related question on the interplay of all these global and universal approaches with critical thinking and creative thinking of the students and the young.
First question first. If I forget, remind me.
I will.
In my age. So in terms of, admittedly, I can only talk when I have experience. I have experience educating young people at ages 18 and higher. I don't have a lot of experience in lower ages. On the other hand, my colleagues have taught me, my colleagues at Open Learning, that, and I do believe it, that this approach, as is feasible for 16, 17, and 18-year-olds. How do I know that? Because in the million people of Analytics Edge, 50,000 were students 16 to 18. In fact, 3 of the students took this class when they were in high school, and now are PhD students at MIT of mine. So clearly, I believe that, I don't believe it's appropriate for 6 years old. But maybe other ideas. Today in the morning, I spoke with one of my former students, who's actually a visiting professor here, Konstantin Karamanis, who told me he has developed a class in AI for youngsters. I have a colleague, somebody you know, Arup Chakrabarty, a very distinguished fellow of chemical engineering, who approached me to create a class in linear algebra for 15, 16, 17 years old. My view is this. You have a platform. You empower and motivate people of intelligence and ability, good things will happen. This is not a theoretical. Arup, he's a highly accomplished person. And he believes that this is a good idea. I do believe that we can affect, and therefore the empty brains that Fotis mentioned, we can make them early on. But to be honest, I don't believe AI is capable, at least I'm not capable of educating 5 years old on that. I don't know how to do it. Second aspect of creativity. Well, let's see about that.
Critical thinking, which comes from early age.
Critical thinking.
Built up at the age of 18 or 20.
Look, I told you, I was skeptical about AI. 2 things changed my mind. Number 1, matrix multiplication was aced by AI. This was a topic I was working, and I'm knowledgeable in this area. It beat the hell out of us. So if this is not creative, it's just, they found a way to multiply matrices better than any human. I don't know if you're familiar with what I'm saying. This is something I start paying attention. Second is the AlphaFold. drug design. You know, the reason the United States has 20% healthcare costs is because the drugs take us $3 billion to build. If you can use AI to do it, this requires some level of creativity, different than human creativity, but creativity. So who am I to say that, now, whether it's teachable or not, I mean, that's a humanity question. That is, if you engage 1 billion people, some of them will have ideas that none of us has. So my hope is, indeed, over time, a tool that the gentleman said could actually enhance human creativity. Not replace it, enhance it. That's my bet. I don't have and to be honest, who knows? I mean, I'm 62 years old. I have some life in front of me. My suspicion in 50 years I won't be around, but who knows what the future Bert Simas will talk about. I'm certain he will talk about human creativity. Who knows?
But the current indications regarding critical thinking and creative thinking from university students and younger students are very discouraging regarding their exposure.
Two rectors asking questions. There's not going to be a third rector asking a question. So,
how about you ask one?
No, no. There is an enjoyable discussion. However, I'm saying to the audience that I have some flowers to offer to Mrs. Benzimas.
Wait, 2 hours.
So I need to interrupt the discussion here. I'm sure that we need
give me flowers.
We need to give flowers, of course.
Did I deserve them or not?
No, you. To George.
Oh, good. Okay. I was hinting.
And this is for you.
Thank you.
Definitely with Perforos and Prometheus.
Great. I will treasure it a lot. You know, I'm very proud graduate of this institution.
So, this was for the ceremony when we will award the Doctor Honoris Causa to Dimitris.
Should I give another talk at the time? Oh boy.
The same one.
I won't give the same talk. You will think I'm
So, thank you so much for coming. Thank you very much. Wonderful meeting. Thank you.